everyone, welcome to another webinar in the Energy Storage Market Series. My name is Erez Dolev and I'm the Managing Director here at RENVU. Today we're going to be hearing from Bernie de Alva Garza, Product Marketing Manager at Sol-Ark, Andrew Gaudin, an engineer at Sol-Ark, and Spencer Christensen, co-founder and director at HomeGrid, and Nick Nielsen, Regional Account Manager at HomeGrid Energy. This is an exciting webinar of two leading manufacturers. They will be discussing battery bank sizing, CNI, whole home backup, and adding ESS to existing systems for NIM3. This webinar is recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel and will be available also as a podcast. We will share links to those in follow-up email. Before we dive in and while we're waiting for all people to join, I'd like to give a little background on RENVU and some of the products and services we offer. So RENVU is a US-based solar equipment distributor established in 2012. All of our sales engineers have engineering background. We have fulfillment facilities in California, New Jersey, and Texas. We're investing significant capital into developing online tools to make it easy to get quotes when you need to quote projects or just want to compare pricing you're getting from other sources. I'll show the online quote tool in a few moments. This year, we are planning to increase significantly our inventory across the country to avoid supply chain constraints we had experienced in the last 2 years. So we will have a stable supply of commercial and residential modules, string inverters, optimizers, microinverters, batteries, racking, and other balance of system components. I'd like to spotlight a few of our popular products. Sol-Ark, of course, is the most popular hybrid inverter. We keep a healthy stock of their portfolio. This inverter works great with the HomeGrid low voltage battery banks. We're offering all our participants today a $500 Visa gift card when you're buying a Sol-Ark 30K or 60K, to $50 gift card for Sol-Ark 12 and 15Ks, and up to $600 for HomeGrid battery bank. If you're buying them, we will share the details in the follow-up email. On the slide here, you can see the PowerField ballast ground mount solution, a simple and cost-effective way to install ground mount PV systems. We recently added Lumin, a smart panel that can be added to existing electrical panel and make regular circuits smart and responsive. There is no easier way to install whole home backup than this product. We'll have a couple of webinars with them next month. For cost-effective retied and hybrid high voltage energy storage inverters options, we have Solis and Growatt inverters. And for microinverters, we carry Enphase, Generac, and AP systems. We have a good availability of Tigo optimizers and rapid shutdown as well. For panels, we have on-the-shelf multiple options such as Longit 345 black on black, vSun 400 black on black, Recom 380s, Trina 480s, Hyperion 540s, and Q-Cells and Canadian coming in. In addition, we adding Toledo Solar, who makes cadmium telluride solar modules, just like the first solar modules. These are made in the US and eligible for the extra 10% ITC when installed together with other made in the US components. We'll share the data sheet for those as well later and in the follow-up email. We are updating regularly our commercial price list with inventory and pricing we have. We're sharing a link to this live spreadsheet in the chat so you can save it and revisit when you need large quantities of modules or when you just want to see where the market is at with pricing. I'll take a minute also to mention our Bleaky residential carport. This is a great way to expand existing solar systems or an alternative solution where you cannot install solar on a roof. Shown here is the two-car carport. There is also an option for a tandem solution with shared columns, so you can connect multiple of those when you need carport for more than 2 cars. It is designed to be assembled by a crew of 2. It doesn't require any specialized or heavy tools to install and it's DIY friendly. This is a solar structure, so it's eligible for the 30% ITC. The carport is supplied with the iron reach system and under panel clamp, so it accepts any solar modules and inverter you want. When combined with bleak air EPDM T-gasket, the surface becomes watertight. You can add a decorative mesh to hide solar components underneath, and also lights that you can add to the columns. It's made in the US and with the US made steel, and it comes with 25 years warranty. The structure is coming with structural engineer P stamp, so you can install up to 24 solar modules with 4 columns of 6 modules up, with basic load capacities of 35 pound per square foot snow load and up to 175 miles per hour wind load and seismic design category E. You can upgrade this structure to handle also 65 pound per square foot snow load. The two-car carport is 18 feet wide and 18 feet deep with 9.5 feet clearance. It comes with 5 degrees tilt. You can find the 3D model of the tandem carport and the standard standalone carport on the Bleaker website. We're sharing now a link to it if you want to play with it and see the different components. As I mentioned, we are developing online tools for you to be able to get quick quotes and bill of materials. You can access the online design and quote tool from our homepage. Simply click next and then select the full system or just specific components. On the next page, you will be able to select solar modules. There are filters that can help you to select the one that works best for your projects. On the next page, you will select the type of installation, and there are several options such as tilted roof, flat roof, carports, ground mount. I'll select tilted roof with a metal sheet. As I'm making selections, the bill of materials on the left is being updated, and if you're logged in, your prices also will show up. I'll create 2 arrays here. First array with 2 rows. First row, I will select 6 modules in landscape. And then the second row, 10 modules in portrait. Then for the second array, I'll just select 8 modules in landscape. I'll select iron reach, racking systems, S5 for roof attachment, and black rails and black clamps. And I will also change the span to be 6 feet. I'll keep the rail as XR100. The system creates a general sketch with the array and dimensions and rail assembly instructions. On the next page, I can select the inverter type that I want. If I want energy storage, I'll select the Sol-Ark 15K here. And then you several options for Sol-Ark. I'll select the 15. And then you choose a battery bank. I will select the HomeGrid 19.2 kilowatt hour stacked battery bank. I can add cabinet for the battery tower and the inverter, and then rapid shutdown device or optimizer. And that's about it. So the next page will be the balance of system. Too much to select there, but you can select if you want cables and connectors and stuff like that. EV charger, I'll just do EV chargers here. And after I click finish, I get the bill of material with pricing if I'm logged in. And I can to receive a formal quote that will send me to my account where the quote will show up, and it will also send a copy to my email. You can email it to our sales team at info@renvu.com, with a quote number, and we can review the bill of materials for you, weigh in with insights, configuration, or availability. Okay, I think we can start now. We have a significant number of participants already. So as I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded and we will upload it to our YouTube channel, and it will be available also as a podcast. We will share the links in the follow-up email. All participants will get the option to take $500 of Visa gift card with Sol-Ark inverters, $600 with HomeGrid batteries. The details for that will be shared also with that follow-up email. If you have questions during the presentation or the Q&A session, use the Q&A button, which makes it easier for us to make sure we answered all questions. So Bernie and Nick, I think can take over now and start sharing your slide deck.
Thanks for the intro. Happy to be here.
Yes, as Nick said, thank you for the intro. My name is Bernie de Alva, and I am the product marketing manager here at Sol-Ark. And I am moving forward from the marketing department to the sales department. So I will be the senior technical sales engineer for the East Coast, but we can talk about that later. Today, we're going to talk about the battery backup with Sol-Ark and HomeGrid. And so let's go ahead and get started with that. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about why Sol-Ark. We're going to then discuss a little bit about the 15K and the whole home backup, which it can work for. The 30K, the 60K for the commercial and industrial applications. We're going to touch on the battery bank sizing and adding ESS to existing systems for NEM3, and then Q&A, but we can save the Q&A for the end after HomeGrid gets done with their presentation. So let's move on to the mission. So at Sol-Ark, our mission is to make the most reliable and not innovative and affordable solar storage solutions for families and their businesses. We have got your back. We provide tools to save money and ensure successful installations every step of the way. Some of those tools include a solar panel sizing tool and a battery calculator, which is on our website. We do offer complimentary design reviews by our support team, that is also taken care of 7 days a week, and it's live support, sales support from Texas. All of our engineers are certified engineers, so you can be assured that you're going to get the correct answers. And again, if you don't receive an answer immediately, we will always work to make sure that you have the correct answer and that you're satisfied with the product. We also offer ongoing monitoring and troubleshooting assistance through our live engineering department. And so why Sol-Ark? So we enable a wide variety of use cases to maximize the value for customers while providing military-grade reliability. We say military-grade reliability just because the company Sol-Ark was started by a couple of veterans and a couple of engineers as well back in 2013. So we are solar panel agnostic, we're battery agnostic, but today we're going to be talking a little bit more about our HomeGrid partnership. We also work with 120 to 40 generators, and we are also generator agnostic. So that means we work with generators that have 2-wire start or manual start generators. We do have multiple modes to save or make money, depending on which situation, which if you're grid tied or off grid. So one of those modes is time of use, another is peak shaving, and then grid sell. So you can sell all of that excess power back to the grid. We also participate in several VPP programs, such as Connected Solutions, Energy Hub over in the East Coast. We are off-grid capable with a 5 millisecond transfer time, which is UPS grade. And we also use battery backup to essentially ensure that the whole home is backed up. We also offer free monitoring via internet connection through an app right now. It's called PowerView, but we are moving forward to our own app, and it's going to be called My Sol-Ark, and it's going to be a US-based server. So essentially all of your information, all of your data is going to be stored here in the US through AWS, and we can ensure that it's going to be safe that way. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our all-in-one solutions for our 48-volt systems. So today I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the 15K. So we do have a lot of other products such as a 5K, 8K, 12K, but today we're going to talk about the 15K because this is going to be our all-in-one solution for whole home backup, right? So as you can see on the screen, it has a high voltage MPPT, well, three high voltage MPPTs for 2 strings each. The inverter is transformerless, and so that essentially is going to maximize the efficiency. We do have a 48-volt charge controller, which is optimized for lead acid or lithium batteries with BMS communications. And so, for example, BMS communications between HomeGrid and Sol-Ark are already established. So one of the reasons we always recommend our friends at HomeGrid. The grid disconnect, it does have a 200 amp internal relay to disconnect from the grid, so you don't need an external ATS. However, we do have some diagrams available that do show how you would use an ATS. We do have Ark fault monitoring, which will protect your home or your business. And as I mentioned earlier, we are generator agnostic, so that means we can connect to any generator as a tertiary power source. And we also have pins that are available for auto generator start. And so to dive a little bit deeper into the Sol-Ark 15K, the max AC power output, as the nameplate states, is 15 kilowatts. Max DC solar for the 3 MPPTs, we can connect 19.5 kilowatts. You can also AC couple simultaneously 19.2 kilowatts. And essentially you can ensure that you sell quite a bit to the grid. Sorry about that. And so the grid pass-through is 48 kilowatts. You can charge 275 amps, charge and discharge. We do support split phase, 208 volt 3-phase and 220 single phase, depending on the wiring configuration at 50 or 60 hertz. You can parallel up to 12 with a 10-year warranty and a NEMA 3R enclosure. So this right here is what a simple one-line diagram looks like with the HomeGrid batteries. So you can see you can connect the utility directly to the grid terminals on the Sol-Ark. The load output goes directly to the main electric panel. The battery connections, we do have 2 positives, 2 negatives, and we recommend connecting to both to ensure that you can get the full 275 amps of output. And it has the 3 MPPTs for all of your solar panels. So it does really simplify your install. It's an all-in-one solution, and you don't need a lot of external components for this. Real quick, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this line diagram, but this is available on our manuals and on our website as well. So as you can see, down in the corner, we start with some battery connections, then some PV, 3 MPPTs. We do have an emergency stop pins so that you can ensure that firefighters and anybody working on your system is safe. We have a gen, load, and grid terminals, which connect the generator, connect directly to loads, and connect directly to the grid. And we also have some paralleling ports right here with the battery CAN bus, which will work for closed loop communications, such as our HomeGrid battery communications. Okay, and if you have any other questions about the diagrams, we do have about 10 to 12 diagrams on our 15K manual. And if you have any other requests that you'd like to see, you can always email us at support@solark.com, and we'll help you out with those diagrams as well, just to ensure that your cases work. So since we're talking about HomeGrid today, we want to talk about a 48-volt charge controller. So we do feature an integrated 48-volt charge controller for our residential systems. That's our 5, 8, 12, and 15Ks. It is fast, efficient, and it ensures safe charging, right? So it is optimized for lithium and lead acid batteries. However, today we're just going to talk about our lithium batteries. So it can charge using AC sources, such as an AC coupled system or the grid, or a DC source, such as the solar panels on the roof or on the ground mount or wherever you put your panels. And so this 48-volt charge controller does have a voltage range of 43 to 63 volts. And you can find out how to integrate all of our different battery partners through our battery integration guide. And so right here on the right, you can see some of our partners, but we love to shout out some HomeGrid. Delve a little bit deeper into that 48-volt charge controller. So we do support, as I mentioned, lead acid or lithium. We do support any chemistry, just as long as it's a 48-volt system, right? Our capacity, the smallest amount that we recommend adding is 50 amp hours. And the limit on the GUI is 900 or 9,900 amp hours as well, which is a huge, huge battery bank. The voltage range with temperature compensation is 43 to 63 volts. So temperature compensation typically is for lead acid batteries, and the closed loop communications take care of the communications of the temperature from the battery to the Sol-Ark. But we also provide a temperature sensor for lead acid batteries in the box itself. So as I mentioned, the 15K does 275 charging output and input, and the 12K does 185 to just get a little bit of sense of the difference between the two. The algorithm is a 3-stage with equalization algorithm. We don't typically recommend equalizing lithium batteries, but we do have that available for all of our lead acid partners. And so the grid to battery charging efficiency is 96%. And as I mentioned, we do include the temperature sensor, and the current shot for the accurate percentage, the state of charge, is integrated in the unit itself. And we do support communications protocols with CAN or Modbus. And in terms of the settings, our settings to establish closed loop communications, they're extremely easy. It's as easy as just tapping on your settings, then battery setup. And as you can see right here, we are going to need to select BMS lithium bat, and we're going to need to ensure that we set the proper Modbus address. For this specific example, 00, that's what we use with HomeGrid stacked series. So I just wanted to go ahead and show that. The battery capacity, max A charge and discharge do come from the battery manufacturer and their specifications. But if you have any questions, our engineers are more than trained to discuss these. And so you can also verify the communications under the BMS lithium bat info section from the menu, from the settings menu. And again, all of this is as easy as just tapping that BMS lithium bat, you press OK, and then you're good to go. The battery and the inverter are going to start communicating. And again, this is all detailed in the Sol-Ark battery integration guide. If you have any questions about that, we can always reach out to info@solark.com or sales@solark.com or support@solark.com. We'll help you no matter where you reach out to us. We're going to talk a little bit about our CNI solutions. So our CNI solutions are high voltage solutions. They are not 48-volt systems. The 30 and the 60K do have different voltages as well, but we can delve a little bit more into that in a second. So they do have high voltage MPPTs, and for the 30 and the 60K, it does come with 4 MPPTs that can input 2 strings each. It is also a transformerless inverter technology, which ensures maximum efficiency. And for the 30K, it's going to be a 500-volt charge controller with a it's going to be for high voltage batteries, and it will only work with BMS communications. So you're not going to be able to just create your own battery bank out of lead acid batteries, bring it up to that 500 volts, and then connect it to it. It needs to have a BMS connection. So Sol-Ark and HomeGrid, we're partners, and we're working on those communications. And so essentially it's going to be available for all of you. We do also have a grid disconnect. So 200 amp internal relay, it is integrated in the unit in the lower right here. And so again, you don't need an external ATS. However, you can use one if you need it to connect to a generator to the grid, or depending on the case use that you have. If you have any questions on these case studies, you can always reach out to us and we'll be happy to discuss. It does come with Ark fault monitoring, so it will protect your home or your business. It is for our high voltage solutions. It's likely going to be a business. However, it is a 12208 volt solution, so it can back up extremely large residences, such as in Beverly Hills or Martha's Vineyard, for example. And for generator integration, the Sol-Ark 30K, you can integrate a 208 volt 3-phase generator, and it does have the auto start capabilities as well. And for the 30K itself, we're going to go ahead and just talk a little bit more about that. It's going to be a nameplate of 30,000 watts that you can output as AC. You can input 39,000 watts into the 4 MPPTs on the Sol-Ark, and they are used with the push actuation levers, so it's extremely easy. Just ensure that those cables have, oh, pardon me, those cables have about 5/8 of an inch, and then you're able to just go ahead and insert. It's that easy. You can AC couple as well simultaneously, 160 amps at 120 volts. And the peak power, depending on whether you have PV, it's going to be about 60 kilovolt amps or 30 kilovolt amps with the maximum amount of PV DC. The grid pass-through is going to be 72 kilowatts, the 200 amp relay that we mentioned. And it does have 2 separate battery inputs for up to 100 amps. It will work with 3-phase Y 208 volts, or you can change it to a 120/240 split phase. However, it will be derated down to 20 kilowatts. That's not good. And so you can parallel up to 12 of these units, and with a 10-year warranty, and you can install it anywhere you want as long as the screen is not getting hit directly by the sun. We do have a NEMA 3R rating. So this is what the standard wiring diagram looks like at 120/208 volts. And so you can see the four strings going into the MPPTs. You can see 2 separate battery banks going into each one. So for the 30K, we are able to connect to 2 separate battery banks in terms of brands, voltages, and capacities, right? So as long as they do have those closed loop communications, you'll be able to connect to 2 different battery banks, which is amazing. And through the touch of a button, you can connect one single battery bank to both of those inputs. All you have to hit is in parallel BAT1 and BAT2, and the system knows that those 2 are connected to a single battery bank. Right here, you can see, right here, you can see the load output going directly to a critical load subpanel. And over here, you see the gen and grid connections. The grid connected right here through a line side tap, and the generator is connected directly to a generator or an AC coupled system. If you have any questions about our wiring diagrams, we do have some available on our 30K manual, and you can always reach out to us as well at support@solark.com. So this can be configured to a Y or 120/240 split phase, which is derated down to 20 kilowatts. And this is a picture of the wiring area so that you can get a feel. And these are right here, the orange push actuation levers are going to be the connections for the battery. As I mentioned, gen, grid is down here. You have your neutral and ground bus bars. You have your load output right below all of this PV input as well. And you have your PV input and all of your comms ports right up here, as well as some sensor inputs as well, so that you can ensure that your generator is connected, and you can use automatic gen start for that. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about the 500 volt charge controller for the 30K, and it does feature 2 integrated 500 volt charge controllers for both of our CNI systems, which is fast, efficient, and ensures safe charging. And this one is different from the previous slide because it is optimized for lithium with closed loop communications only. I'm going to say that one more time. Lithium communications only. You cannot use any battery bank that you want. As long as we do have some high voltage battery partners that you can look on our website. We will recommend HomeGrid definitely, and we're working on those communications. So you're going to be able to utilize 2 separate battery banks, as I mentioned, and charge using AC source, such as the grid or a generator, or the DC source, which will be the solar panels on the roof. For the 30K, we do have a 150 to 550 volt battery range, and it will increase for the 60K. So for the 60K, we have a nameplate of 60,000 watts that you can AC output. The DC solar, you can input up to 78 kilowatts onto those 4 MPPTs. You can AC couple 125 kilowatts without any PV, DC at least, with a peak power of 120 kilovolt amps, which is 144.4 amps, with a grid pass-through of 102 kilowatts, which is 160 amps line to neutral. The 50 amps per input up to 100 amp continuous charge and discharge, and the supported voltages is going to be a 277 for 83 phase service. That's not good. And it will support the frequencies of 50 or 60 hertz. You can parallel up to 12 with a warranty of 10 years. And again, all of our systems you can install outside anywhere as long as the sun does not hit the screen, because we do have a NEMA 3R rating. So for the 60K, we do have two integrated 1000 volt charge controllers for fast, efficient, and safe charging as well. For the 60K, it's also only closed loop communications with lithium batteries, and you still can use up to 2 different battery banks per system. And since you can parallel up to 12 units, each unit will need its own battery bank as well. So you can charge using AC or DC source, as I've mentioned, and the difference on this one is the range of the voltage for the battery. And the battery voltage range is 160 volts up to 800 volts for the 60K. And so we do have built-in communications with our high voltage battery partners, and HomeGrid specifically always stands out. Now, we are not a battery manufacturer. We're solely an inverter manufacturer. We're delving a little bit more into different markets, but we're not going to delve into the battery market. However, this is some information. I figure HomeGrid's going to be able to speak to this in a much greater, with much greater expertise than we can. However, for battery bank sizing, you need to know what the home energy consumption is going to be, right? So the battery bank should be at least as large as the energy demand that the home takes daily. And of course, it's important to understand these power requirements because it will affect the way the system works. And so you need to know essentially the voltage, currents, and duty cycles of those loads. For the charging sources, that's also extremely important in terms of your battery bank. So you want to ensure whether you're going to use solar panels, the grid, maybe a wind turbine. These all can affect the size of the battery bank and also the charge and discharge rates. The depth of discharge is also an extremely important factor for choosing the battery bank size. And so lead acid does commonly have a depth of discharge, which is DOD, at 50%, which is not essentially the most efficient in terms of using. So we do always recommend our customers that are not worried about EMPs, we'd recommend lithium batteries, which can discharge much higher towards around 80% of depth of discharge. Another factor that affects the battery bank sizing is the temperature range at which the batteries will perform. So they do perform best at a specific temperature range, and the actual temperature does affect the battery's performance. For example, if you charge your battery while it's freezing and while it's below freezing, that could definitely have some negative consequences to the battery. So you want to ensure that, if you live in climates with extreme temperatures, you might need to choose a larger battery bank to account for those fluctuations. And you need to ensure that, depending on where you are, say Canada, you need to ensure that those battery banks are in an insulated environment so that the temperature does not go past the temperature range for that specific battery bank. So part 2, as we mentioned, we do work with all chemistries for our residential systems, only lithium for our high voltage systems, but different chemistries have different depths of discharges, as I mentioned. They also have different discharge rates and efficiencies in terms of charging and discharging. So, for example, lead acid is definitely cheaper, but they have a lower depth of discharge and shorter lifespans compared to lithium ion batteries, which can definitely change the ROI on that system. And if you have to replace those batteries constantly, that might increase the price as well. Also got to keep in mind the inverter capacity. So it should be sized accordingly to handle both the AC loads on the inverter and the battery charge rate that you want the batteries to charge at. And for example, oversizing the inverter can result in an inefficient operation, while undersizing can cause the system to shut down during, perhaps peak demand. Another thing to keep in mind is the charge controllers, so that are responsible for regulating the charging and discharging of the battery bank. And you want to ensure that you can charge and discharge up to that desired amperage. So understanding these specifications and capabilities of the charge controller is pretty important in sizing the battery bank. And so, as I mentioned, our friends at HomeGrid are going to be able to talk about battery bank sizing as well, and in a lot greater detail than we can. But let's move on to our key takeaways. So Sol-Ark is a extremely versatile system. Both our low voltage and our high voltage systems, they are easily on grid or off grid, and you can retrofit via AC coupling. And you can see those diagrams on our website and our manuals as well. So we're extremely innovative. So our UPS grade 5 millisecond transfer time and an all-in-one design, which means efficiency and available power is only advantages. We are an extremely simple system to integrate, with batteries, with panels, with generators, with RSD, and, even AC coupling microinverters as well, as long as they're UL 1741 SA compliant, but that's another webinar as well. You can use the UPS grade transfer time and significant continuous and surge power, which is scalable in both residential and CNI systems. We do offer our free monitoring, which is going to be coming from the app called My Sol-Ark, and that's coming soon to the general public as well. Again, as I mentioned, it's going to be a US-based server that hosts your data here in the US through AWS, and it's going to ensure to keep all of your information safe, prevent any hacks from overseas. And again, we just want to keep in mind that our customers are #1 priority. So it also comes with free features already integrated in the software, such as time of use, peak shaving. We do have VPP programs, virtual power plants, and incentive programs. And you can find a lot about those through info@solark.com if you have any questions on those. We are UL listed now, and we also have compliance for OpenADR 2.0, SGIP, CEC, HECO, PREPA, and IEEE 2030.5 is pending, I believe. That might be updated already, but I'll need to check that with the solar engineering team as well. And so we do offer world-class support 7 days a week with live phone support from Texas, and you will be talking to an engineer if you do call in. So you're going to ensure that you have somebody, with a lot of knowledge for this industry. I would also highly recommend emailing our support at Sol-Ark line. It creates a ticket and it's assigned to one of our engineers, and one of those engineers is going to reply back to you. Typically it is a same day reply. So I highly encourage you writing us whatever questions you might have. And so again, as I mentioned, we do also offer complimentary design reviews. We don't do the whole design of your system. We're not that kind of company, but our engineers are more than capable to give you feedback on those designs. Okay, so then we're going to talk about questions, but I would just like to hand it over. I would like to hand the floor over to Nick over at HomeGrid so that they can get their part of the presentation going. Again, thank you all, and I will be here for the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Bernie. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the shout outs.
I tried.
My screen showing okay? Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. We'd like to thank RENVU too for putting this all together and letting us present. We really appreciate them. And thank you, Sol-Ark, for all that information. It was really detailed and super informative. So my name's Nick. I am a regional sales manager for HomeGrid. I cover Northern California and Oregon. I also cover the Northeast from New York up to Maine. I also have Spencer Christensen joining me, who is director of HomeGrid and one of the co-founders of the company. So today I just wanted to talk about HomeGrid, who we are, and give a quick overview of the company, what we do. I also wanted to talk about how our batteries are in a cooperation with Sol-Ark. We're able to offer a whole home backup. Our C&I applications and solutions, battery sizing, and then also we wanted to talk about NEM 3.0 and our solution to that. So HomeGrid was acquired by a company called Lithion about 2 years ago. Lithion is a global leader in battery manufacturing. They've been around since 1998. They make batteries for robotics, electric vehicles, medical equipment, golf carts. They're working on a few military contracts right now. And something that's kind of cool is they've actually made custom batteries for some of the roller coasters at Disneyland. So they're really well diversified and established in the battery market. And they wanted to get into the residential side of things, and that's where HomeGrid comes into play. Lithion is headquartered in Canada. They have global manufacturing facilities all over the place, engineering teams in Europe. And HomeGrid is actually located in a suburb of Las Vegas called Henderson. And that's where all of our batteries are shipped out of. We have an 80,000 square foot facility there. Our tech support team is a US-based team as well, and that's where they're located. So with that acquisition, we've gained strong financial backing from investment partners like TriWest and Koch Industries. With those investments, we've been able to gain a stronghold on the market, and we've also gained a lot of inventory. And that's one thing I believe that really sets us apart from a lot of other battery manufacturers, is that we have plenty of inventory and we have quick lead times. We can get batteries out through RENVU, in about 2 to 3 weeks. And we've stayed consistent with that or faster all through last year, and expect to do that as well through this year. So jumping into our product line, we have our Stack series, our Compact series, and the HomeGrid Cube. We're not going to be diving too deeply into the Compact series. It's pretty comparable to a lot of batteries currently on the market, 5 kilowatt hours, 5 kilowatt continuous. I encourage you to go on our website and you can learn more about that specific battery. As far as our Stack series go, I like to compare it to small SUVs versus like a Jeep or a Hummer. When small SUVs, they're great in snow, they're great off-road, but if they make it through like a swamp or they make it to the top of the mountain, they're not really designed to do that, but you give them kudos when they do. Our battery is more comparable to like a Hummer or a Jeep, where they live in the swamp. They're supposed to be at the top of the mountain, and our batteries are designed to be, a whole home battery backup system. We are modular in design. So each one of these white modules is 4.8 kilowatt hours, and these are the batteries. It's stackable, and it starts at 2 stacks at 9.6 kilowatt hours, and it goes all the way up to 8. So you can stack 8 batteries in a single stack. You can actually run 8 15 stacks in parallel if you'd wanted to, getting you over a 0.5 megawatt of storage capacity. With our batteries, we actually use lithium iron phosphate as our chemistry. It's the safest chemistry on the market, very little risk for thermal runaway, and it has a longer lifespan than other chemistries that are being used for home batteries. Really, the only downside to LFP is that it's a little bit heavy, but I feel like we've negated that weakness by making our battery modular. You can take each piece anywhere you're going to be installing these batteries, and it's not a solid, heavy unit. It allows for quick installs. We also don't have any wiring in between modules. It's stacks on top of itself like Legos. There's a male-female adapter on the top and bottom of each battery, and it just stacks up. The other thing that we have is we have all the certifications that are necessary or required for installation in the United States. We've completed the 9540A testing, which allows for closer installs. We also, with our stackability, we're able to do a sub, 45-minute, 30-minute installs, which is huge for installers. You're saving tons of time and money on labor costs, and you're on to your next project. And like Bernie was saying, temperature is an issue in some places, but we do have a heated module, which allows for installation in colder climates. We are IP55 rated, which is waterproof and particle proof, but we do recommend that these are installed out of direct UV and, if possible, inside the home in a garage in a detached structure. We do have a hardcover shell casing that's coming out, and it should be available in June, which will allow for it to be installed outside without the additional structures. So our battery at 4 modules is 19.2 kilowatt hours and has a continuous output of 14.4 kilowatts with and 300 amps continuous. With that amount of power, most homes have a 200 amp panel, and we're able to, literally power an entire house off of a single battery. We're really one of the only batteries on the market that can power an entire home off of a single battery. We are inverter agnostic, but we do like Sol-Ark because they have one of the most powerful inverters on the market, and really one of the only inverters that can pull what we're able to push. So we do like pairing with them. Also, with it being stackable, if a homeowner wants to add modules down the road, it's really very simple to upgrade. All you have to do is pop off the top BMS or the brains of the unit, stack on some more modules, recommission, and you've upgraded your storage in 30 minutes or less. So that's one thing that's convenient for installers and homeowners, is that they could not be worried about really locking in on a certain kilowatt hour. And you're not adding an entirely separate unit. You're just going vertical. You're not taking up more space or having to find more space on a wall. You're just going vertical. So it's very convenient. Like Bernie also was saying, we do have a high voltage stackable battery coming out, and that should be available later this year. Until then, we have this HomeGrid Cube, which is an outdoor rated cabinet, which can fit 4 8 stacked batteries. It's climate controlled, so it does have heating and cooling. You could stick 3 Sol-Ark 15Ks on the outside, which would allow for 120, 240 split phase. And then also you could do the 208 3-phase. With the 4 8 stacks, you can have 156 kilowatt hours inside. You can run 2 of those in parallel, getting you over 300 kilowatt hours. This is a plug-and-play system. So we supply everything on the DC side. We stack it up, cut cables to length. We take the batteries out just for weight purposes, ship it all together, and basically we drop it on site, and all you have to do is stack it up, commission it, and then you are ready to go. It's a really great system. One question we get a lot, and Bernie went into a lot of detail with this. So this is one I guess equation that we found that's pretty successful and easy to use. So what we do is we find the highest used month for electricity out of a previous year, and that's typically going to be a month between July and September. You divide that highest month's kilowatt hours by the number of days in that month. And then you take that number and you divide it by 2 to get your battery size. So basically half of your day is run off solar and the other half is powered by the battery. And if you oversize your solar system, 120%, then you're powering your home, and then you're also able to refill your battery every day. So here's an example. If in August, a home used 1,456 kilowatt hours, you take that amount and you divide it by the number of days in August, which would give you 47 kilowatt hours per day. Then we divide that number by 2, which gives us 23.5 kilowatt hours. And then we're going to round that to the nearest stacked battery size, which would be 5 modules for 24 kilowatt hours. And that should be sufficient. If it's not, it's super simple to upgrade. All you do is just pop on another module and you're ready to go. One thing, I'm going to hop out of this. Sol-Ark actually has a really cool solar battery calculator. So for a lot of new homes that don't have any energy usage data, you can actually go on their website, type in your zip code, and it will give you the average number of sun hours per day. You can add individual loads, which also spits out another number, which would give you a rough idea of what you'd need. But again, if you're a little off, it's super simple to simply upgrade and add more batteries as you go. So one question, especially for people in California, is that NEM 2 is being phased out this month, and it's shifting over to NEM 3.0. And I'm going to turn the time over to Spencer now, and he's going to talk about a little bit about NEM 3.0 and also our solution for that.
Yeah, excited to be on with all of you today. The NEM 3 shift is monumental. I think it's going to change not only the energy industry in California, but I think a lot of other utility companies are going to follow suit. We actually designed our system based off of this shift happening. We saw in Hawaii they had cut off net metering, and we anticipated that California would do the same. We also do anticipate that most other utility companies are going to be looking at not paying homeowners. I think the funny thing is, not only when somebody goes solar do they lose their customer. With net metering, they have to pay the customer, and I think they're going to shift away from that. It's looked at as a step back in solar, but I do feel like it was inevitable. And now with batteries being at where they're at, you can just create a full home microgrid, and it works out really great. Go to the next slide. So what we're seeing here with the Sol-Ark 15K, with one single unit and with our HomeGrid stacked battery, all you need to do is do a Hawaiian tie-in, and then you put the Sol-Ark in between, and you form that full home microgrid. What I'm seeing installers do is they shift over all of the breakers into the secondary panel. And there's a couple of ways that you can configure it. You can have it on no net metering and not have to sign up for NEM, which is a big deal. What I'm seeing installers do is because one big issue that I'm seeing in the field is that the installer will go out, install the system, then they have to wait for interconnection, permitting, you have to wait for the inspector to come out. Not giving an official recommendation, but what I am seeing out in the field is that a lot of installers are using this system, and they will have it not export into the grid. And the day that you install it, you can have this full home microgrid running. So your customers are going to be a lot happier, and they're going to be giving a lot more referrals instead of waiting for months to, have that interconnection happen. So you could also adjust the settings and later sign up for NEM, because I think there are a lot of benefits with NEM, but being able to have the system run for you day of is a really big thing. Also, in a single form factor, being able to power an entire home is very significant. I do feel like what the market's going to shift to is this concept of a full home microgrid appliance. I think most homeowners really want just a really plug and play, simple, upgradable solution that's safe and stable, going to last, 15 plus years. And the concept of it being an appliance is going to take off. I'm working with a lot of the biggest home builders in the US, and they're already starting to make designs for the homes to be prefabbed for easy install on solar and batteries. And this shift is going to take off around the country. I think it would be weird in 10 years to see homes be built without systems like this. There's a lot of security and independence that comes with it. California, it also makes a lot of sense financially. You can create a full home microgrid with solar, inverter, and batteries, and immediately be your own power plant. The grid is now going to be Plan B, and that's a pretty monumental shift in energy history. The nice thing about this system versus other systems is that you can, with the Sol-Ark 15K, power all of the loads, not just, doing a critical load panel. I'm, however, seeing a lot of large sales groups not be concerned about, the grid failures, and they're more concerned with time of use. So you can use the Sol-Ark 8K or 12K, and then just shift over the 120 circuits. And then one really great setting in the Sol-Ark units is that they have limited power to home, limited power to load. And so you can leave, circuits over here, 240 circuits over here, and just do a critical load panel. And the benefit is that, you can, it will, by putting CTs on that main panel, it'll identify exactly what you need to power in the main panel, and it will send that much power. So, still being able to have these systems run for you day of installation, even with the 8K, 12K, and then definitely the 15K. So I'm not making necessarily an official recommendation. You guys can figure out what you want to do with your business, but I do feel like this is, the most powerful system on the market. It's designed to be a full home microgrid, and installers love it. It's so easy to install and configure. It's getting better and better. And, homeowners have been kind of lied to for years because people have been promising batteries that can power the entire home, and then they find out that they can't. And this solution truly can do full home microgrids. So it's extremely exciting. It works also with AC coupling. If you have, N-phase micros, you can very easily AC couple. I was at an install the other day. I did it on my dad's house with micros, and you can easily AC couple the Sol-Ark 15K into those micros. I would say, however, one big shift with net metering ending is simply that it's more efficient to keep it DC. And in California, I'm already working with a lot of installers, and they're shifting their entire go-to-market strategy from using micros to DC microgrids. And it's far more efficient to do it that way. There's a lot less equipment needed, and you're going to be able to, use those DC solar panels and go straight into the through the Sol-Ark into the battery, keeping it DC. So it's a much more efficient system. RENVU has Tygo, and they have really great rapid shutdown optimizers, and you can have panel level monitoring. One big thing to note is, as far as sizing solar for these microgrids, is that you're probably going to want about 115 to 120% offset, just to make sure you have enough power to carry you through the evening. If you do that, if you follow that formula that Nick went over and go off of half of your daily consumption, and then tell the homeowner, hey, we don't want to oversize the system for you. We want to build it after your consumption needs. Let's start with this, and then if we need to upgrade it, we can easily get an extra module and add it on down the road, so we can customize it per project. With this battery being modular, it's very easy to get these batteries to site, around the site. You don't have to struggle to get it upstairs. It's very straightforward. And then also one thing that we've seen is having batteries that mount on the wall. Those can be extremely heavy, so it's cumbersome for the installers. There might not be room on the wall, but also most of the walls aren't rated for 500 pounds of battery to be attached to them. So this system, we feel like, is the best system for these full home microgrids. And we have really great tech support and sales support. We want to work with your teams. One big reason that we love our partnership with Sol-Ark is they have similar support. They have a great team to help out on addressing your questions and training your sales teams, training your installers. This shift is happening right now. I mean, we only have an extra, within the next 2 weeks, NEM3 will have started. So please schedule with us some time. We can come in person and we can do online trainings. We want to make sure your teams are very comfortable with this transition. I know a lot of groups are leaving California, and we don't feel like that is necessary. We feel like this is a really big opportunity, and it's going to be mapped out across the country anyways. So we might as well get ahead of it. And we're definitely here to support you on that. Awesome.
Thanks, Dave. I'm going to leave this on the screen because Spencer touched on a lot of it. We also have a 24 kilowatt surge for 10 seconds, or 500 amp surge. So if there are a lot of things that are dark starting, it can handle that pull for a long time. And also, like Spencer was saying, net metering is cutting your one-to-one down to about 75% selling back to the grid and getting it back. So when you're oversizing, you're filling up your battery, and then any excess, if you do sign up for NEM, you can sell that. But really, you're just trying to keep as much as you can so that you don't ever have to pull from the grid. And that's going to do a lot for your ROI, because you're not going to have an extra power bill. You're just going to have your solar bill. So that's going to pay itself off really quickly, especially in states like California. Full home backup, modular design, best-in-class chemistry, very simple install, and we have a US-based technical support team in Las Vegas. The numbers are on our website. You can reach out or email our tech support team. This is my contact information. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. And yeah, like Spencer was saying, really excited to work with you guys. If you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here for you.
Okay, thanks, Bernie and Nick and Spencer. Let's get started with the Q&A session. If you have any questions and you haven't asked them yet, please feel free to ask it in the Q&A section. You have a button on your Zoom menu there, and we will try to get to as many as we can, and we'll follow up by email if we don't get over everything. Let's put it up and start.
So that first question I can take. So my question is in regards to best charging practices for optimizing storage battery for long-term life. So the nice thing about our chemistry, the LFP, it doesn't degrade like other chemistries. You can discharge and charge it. Really not, you don't have to completely deplete it. We do recommend, not going all the way down to zero, keeping it around, 80 to 85% depth of discharge will add to longevity of it. But I mean, technically with that chemistry, you could take it all the way down to zero. Says, and I don't know if this is in addition to, but I own an EV, and my research around optimizing EV battery life has shown me that regular charging beyond 80% battery capacity is detrimental to longevity of battery pack. Only we're preparing for a long trip should 100% battery pack charging be done. And then I think it might add the next one too. My solar battery backup is an LG Chem 10K unit. I have programmed it to stop being charged at 80% capacity. I haven't heard anything about charging it to 100%. I've only heard about discharging it to too low of your capacity. So do you have anything to add to that, Spencer?
Yeah, I would say if it's an EV and an LG Chem, both of those are going to be NMC or NCA on the EV. And both of those are very susceptible to degradation with overcharging and over discharging. So lithium iron phosphate is going to last 2 to 3 times longer. I'm seeing reports on NMC lasting only 2,000 to 3,000 cycles, whereas with LFP, we're anticipating 7,000 to 8,000 cycles. So yeah, absolutely. It's good to be smart about how you are utilizing these systems, but with LFP, they're going to be far more robust, and you can do 100% depth discharge. It's more important just to have 80%. Do 80% because it's always smart to have some in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is for Sol-Ark.
Yeah.
All right. So Eric is asking, what are your, it just switched up.
I can read it.
Perfect. So what are your plans for integrating bidirectional charging capabilities with electric vehicles for V2H and V2G applications? So for our Sol-Ark 15Ks, we can already integrate some, we can integrate EV chargers for sure. In terms of bidirectionality, that's not yet. For bidirectionality, we are currently working with several manufacturers that have their electric vehicles. For NDA purposes, I can't discuss these yet, but we are in the works of coming out with a functional relationship to ensure that, you know, our 30Ks are available for our bidirectional charging capabilities, if that makes sense. So for that, we will need to just say stay tuned for all of these, you know, new applications and new integrators, I will say. Definitely coming in soon. Very, very interesting companies and highly, highly rated companies as well. So stay tuned on that. Andrew, would you like to answer this next one from 12:19 p.m. anonymous attendee?
Question is the Sol-Ark considered a multi-purpose inverter for grid tie and can still be operational if the grid were to be disconnected or shut down by the utility? And the answer to that is yes. We can operate grid tied and also off grid. We have lots of customers that operate only off grid with batteries using our inverters. And we also have lots of customers that basically shut their grid off manually if they have a large enough bank and only use the grid should they have inclement weather, real cloudy days, so they can recharge their batteries should their PV not be high enough.
Awesome. The next question is really good. As I understand, the max discharge can be limited within Sol-Ark inverter settings. Can we start with a small undersized battery, a HomeGrid battery bank for partial backup, and then upgrade to a full backup in the future? For instance, a Sol-Ark 15K with a HomeGrid 9.6 kilowatt hour bank, then later upgrade to 38 kilowatt hours. And the answer is yes, absolutely. Really the limiting factor of any system, or the bottleneck, is going to be that inverter. So it's good to have a 15K. You could start with a 9.6 and then upgrading down the road. You can do that super easy. So good question.
Is there a limit for how many years before you're adding more modules, or you can add at any point?
No, yeah. So each module is warranted for 10 years. And whenever you add that module, it's going to be warranted for that 10 years.
The fact that it's not equal doesn't matter.
No, these are run in parallel, so we'll keep to the same architecture. And we do anticipate that homeowners will be adding modules to these for years. We just changed our warranty for throughput, so each module has its own throughput warranty. So you do up to around 14 megawatt hours of throughput through each one, which comes to around 10 years. And you can really do unlimited cycles on these batteries. It's just a throughput warranty. So it's one of the biggest benefits is that if you wanted to upgrade your system with solar or any other component, it would take hours and you'd have to have an electrician and really spend a lot of time modifying the entire system. With our system, all you do is take off the BMS and in 5 minutes, add an extra module, change some settings, and you're good to go.
I will also add to that that just since we do have closed loop communications with HomeGrid, it's as easy as ensuring that the BMS communications are set and the Modbus address is correct, and it's literally that simple. All right, Alan Pepito is asking, for the 240 volt split phase connection, it can be programmed so that it automatically gets disabled when the battery bank reaches a specified state of charge. For example, if SOC reaches 30%, the 240 volt connection becomes disabled. If I understood you correctly, the answer is no. So essentially, as soon as the battery reaches an SOC, depending on which system work mode you're in, it will either trigger the generator to start and it'll immediately start charging those batteries. It will either shut the system down, depending if you don't have an external source of energy, such as the grid or a generator. And if it does shut down, as long as you do have that activate battery button in the morning, as soon as you have enough sunlight, the system will just start trickle charging those batteries to ensure that they turn back on to the restart voltage. But the 240 volts, I mean, it's going to be, you know, on the 15K, you do have those line to lines at 120 volts each. So, you know, depending on how your electrician wires your main service panel, you're going to be able to get that 240 volts, you know, out of the loads panel. If I hope that answered that question, Alan. And, you know, if it did not, please feel free to add a little bit more to that.
Okay, I can add to that also, Bernie. If he meant specifically shutting.
Did we lose him?
Yeah, his internet is slow probably. Let's jump to the next question and get back to it when his internet is.
Oh, hey, Andrew, are you back?
Oh, you're muted.
You hear me now? Okay. I was saying we could use the smart load function of the inverter to power maybe a specific 240 load and shut it off when the battery reaches a certain state of charge. But just on the regular load output, we would not be able to shut down a 240 load, if that makes sense. I'm not sure. Am I cutting
And
out
on
again?
that, No, I don't think so. But on that, I mean, if you want to know whether we can stop the grid charge, you know, after the battery charges to a particular state of charge, I mean, we do offer a time of use capabilities, which you can ensure to bring up the battery bank up to a certain voltage or percentage before, or so that it stops the generator or stops charging from the grid as well. It just depends on the time, literally on the we have 6 times for time of use. So as long as you just set your times correctly on that time of use, you can definitely stop that charging at a specific voltage or percentage. But again, if you have a specific question, you know, about your system itself, you know, you can always reach out to support@solark.com or, you know, sales@solark.com, and we'll definitely talk through with those whatever scenario you want to talk through. All right, so let's answer Greg's. So Greg's saying, I currently have a system I purchased through RENVU, and it consists of 3 SMA 5.0 inverters and a 20.8 kilowatts of solar. I'd like to add a battery backup and 5 to 10 kilowatts more of solar with battery backup. Additionally, in a long-term grid down situation, I'd like the new addition to the system to AC couple with the SMA inverter and allow them to function. Is the 15K Sol-Ark a good candidate? So yes, I mean the 15K you can DC couple 19.5 kilowatts of PV panels, and you can also AC couple 19.2 kilowatts as long as the inverter is, or as long as the AC coupled inverter is UL 1741 SA compliant. SMA is definitely compliant, so you can very easily AC couple SMA inverters into our Sol-Ark. And now in terms of a grid down situation, and that does, you know, become a little bit different, and it will just be used to charge the batteries up to a certain voltage or percentage, and then it'll turn off those AC coupled panels, since you can't sell back all of that extra power to the grid. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you'd like to discuss this specifically, you know, with our sales team, you know, we'd be happy to go over it. So sales@solark.com, or you can reach out to me personally, Bernie@solark.com. And I mean, we can definitely talk a little bit more about this in depth.
I have a question about this situation. So if a customer have SMA inverters and you want to add Sol-Ark, would you recommend just to remove the SMA inverters and connect the modules directly to the Sol-Ark, or leave the SMA inverter as is?
So that's a really good question. And that really does depend. I mean, how I like to think about those kind of situations is if a customer already has made that investment into those SMA inverters, might as well use them. If they can't get rid of them, selling them to a friend or whatnot, might as well use them as AC coupled. But yes, we will always recommend DC coupling before AC coupling because we can limit the production and essentially ensure that the system is used as efficiently as possible, if that makes sense. But that's a really good question.
Also add more PV to the system if they wanted to keep the existing solar and add more. We can AC couple in and then DC couple in more on top of it.
On this next question, when will HomeGrid commercial batteries be certified and available for Sol-Ark 30 and 60K? Can we pre-order them now? We haven't really opened up for pre-orders. We do anticipate it's a high voltage BMS. There's a lot of benefits to this unit because it'll keep the same architecture as we have with the stack series. It'll still be stackable. We can go up to 576 kilowatt hours with this system. And it'll be compatible with both the 30 and the 60K. We do have other solutions coming out a little bit later than that will also be working really great with the Sol-Ark 30 and 60K. So please reach out to us and we can give you some more detail on the high voltage BMS. But we do anticipate about June, July that will be available.
For the 9548 test results, I'd be happy to get that to you. If it's not on our website now, we will be getting it on there soon. You can reach out to me, just send me an email, and then I can email it over to you. Michael says, does not the same charging ethic apply to solar battery charging? Is it not healthier for long-term life of the battery pack to not be regularly charged to 100%? Would not this also apply to all lithium-ion rechargeable battery packs, such as construction tools, dust busters, cell phones, etc.? And if so, why is there such a lack of guidance in the solar PV community industry? So I think this goes back to what Spencer was saying. Lithium ion is actually an umbrella term for multiple different chemistries under that. So NMC is a big one, which is often used in like electric vehicles, tools, stuff like that. Whereas LFP, it's a little more heavy, so it's used for more stationary solutions. And different chemistries perform differently, degrade differently, react differently by how you charge it, discharge it, stuff like that. So we use lithium iron phosphate as our chemistry. We see the whole industry shifting towards that because it is safer and has just a way longer lifespan. So, you can charge and discharge these down to 0 and up to 100 with no degradation effects.
That's us. That's a SolarEdge optimizer. So the answer is no. The S440 works only with SolarEdge inverters. But if you want if you want optimize, correct. So if it's AC coupled, you can AC couple the SolarEdge inverter with Sol-Ark. If you want optimizers directly with Sol-Ark, then Tygo will work perfectly. It's a great solution.
All right, so Peter now is asking, does the solar commercial battery systems require a transformer when connecting to three-phase commercial services? So that depends, of course, on what voltage service you're using. For the, you didn't name a specific system, but for the 30K, it is a 12208 volt system, and it connects to Y connections, Y services. And for the 60K, it's going to be 277 for 80 as well with Y connections. So essentially, if the transformer, primary or secondary, does not match, exactly what we're rated for, you will need to use a transformer for that.
The one I see popping up on that would be a Delta configuration. And we see that, quite a bit. So it'd be 4 wires versus 5 wires. And then, we've made a lot of recommendations as far as transformers, but it adds to the system and pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Spencer.
Many HJs limit BESS unit size to 20 kilowatt hours. How do you count units for greater than 20 kilowatt hour systems? Is it a unit or module or a stack of modules? Right now, it's the stack of modules. Unfortunately, we are actually working to try and get that shifted over to just the unit, the module itself, which makes more sense. All of this regulation, though, was designed because of NMC batteries catching on fire. LG had like a 30 to 50,000 unit recall, and I think they will shift this so it would be specifically for NMC batteries in the future. It doesn't make sense for LFP. However, you can do, the 2 separate stacks. You get up to 40 kilowatt hours by, having them, 3 feet apart. And in some HJs, because of our 9540A certification, they're allowing it to be 6 inches apart. We are shifting it though. We're going to try and get it on just the module itself to make it straightforward for everybody.
What's the highest charging temperature? So charge temperature is 32 degrees all the way up to 113. Discharging is 14 all the way up to 140.
And if that question was about the Sol-Ark, I mean, we do have a temperature derating that starts at 90 degrees Celsius, up to 100 degrees Celsius with shutdown at 100 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, my temperatures were in Fahrenheit. For battery sizing calculation is dividing by 2 a factor considered for all HomeGrid battery stacked options. Yes, it is. This is for Sol-Ark.
Andrew, would you like to answer this one, please?
My questions keep going up and down. Something's going on with my internet.
I'll read it. I'm hoping that with the Sol-Ark inverter, a system with a battery backup can be configured to charge the battery system completely from solar without having a dedicated part of the PV system to charge only operation. Dynamic load balancing, they call it. Or can you separate and just set up the Sol-Ark will only charge the batteries from the solar PV and not from the grid or generator?
We can, by default, we're going to charge the batteries from PV. To charge batteries from a generator or the grid, we by default have to program that in, and we can set times that they can happen with time of use and set high points that the battery would charge up to, etc. So that way, if someone does have times where they have more expensive power from the grid, it can be done at only certain times, or just not have it entirely. By default, we're just going to charge from PV. Sounds good.
All right, so Eric is also asking, Sol-Ark provides Arc flash protection for which inputs? Battery, DC coupled PV, AC coupled PV, bidirectional charging from EV, ? So the Arc flash protection is for the DC coupled PV.
And then there's a bunch of questions kind of below, which we can skip over, that are all just how long after the initial install can we add extra modules? And there's no time limit.
All right, so after those questions, I do see, does Sol-Ark work with the Tigo Rapid Shutdown out of the box? Yes, we do work with Tigo.
There is a question that I would like to bump up about the availability of the Sol-Ark 60K. I know that the 30K is already available, right? So we're just wondering here about the 60K availability.
Yeah, good question. So for the 60K availability, we are aiming for the end of May, available for pre-orders, and it'll be available to all of our distributors, including RENVU.
And for the question, if you can pre-order them, then yes, RENVU will take pre-orders and will fulfill by the time that those orders came in.
All right, so Anonymous asked, when a Sol-Ark is connected to solar panels and batteries, is the total power output the sum of their power capacity, or does the Sol-Ark output one or the other individually? All right, so good question. And so essentially depending of course on your system work mode, if you have enough solar panels, their panels will take care of all the loads. In the case you have, for easy numbers, in the case you have 5 kilowatts of PV DC on the roof available, and you have 8 kilowatts of loads, then the 3 kilowatts will also come from the batteries. So it can output the sum of the power, if that answers that question. And then another one that says, does HomeGrid and or Sol-Ark integrate with existing Tesla Powerwalls? No, Tesla does not like to integrate with Sol-Ark, at least. I'm not entirely sure about HomeGrid, and I will not be able to speak for them.
No, but you could AC couple onto it. Is what I have seen, right? You can do, if they had an existing system, you would just tie it in and it would just view it as a, it would
Yes.
take an interesting configuration, but you could definitely AC couple into it and then it would just view it as an AC source.
Yeah, so as long as Spencer said, yes, as long as it is, AC coupled, but in terms of connecting, the Powerwall itself to the Sol-Ark, you'd have to do, a bypass essentially to just ensure that it does not read exactly that it's a Tesla.
There was one quick question.
Here
Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Just simply, if you add more stacks, will it trigger a city permit certification or a review? Every HGA is different, but typically what I'm saying is yes. Whether or not you do that, it's your prerogative, but we are typically saying that.
Question here, if the Sol-Ark 30K is CEC listed.
Yes, I believe the 30K is CEC listed. We've been working on that for sure. But if you have any questions on those certifications, we can always schedule a call to ensure that all of those answers are 100% met. And then someone asked, I'll answer it live. Could you comment briefly on recommendations for microgrid setups for the Sol-Ark 30K? I mean, I can talk about microgrids, for a whole hour with the 30K. But in terms of having a microgrid, as long as you have a extremely large array for your solar panels, as long as you also have a pretty large battery backup, microgrids are extremely simple to set up, and we'll also be able to monitor these microgrids through our My Sol-Ark app. So if you have any questions on designs, please feel free to reach out to sales@solark.com so that we can, talk about those microgrids as well. But good question.
Question here to HomeGrid. Does the batteries have to stay housed in the carrier cart provided, or can they be rack mounted?
So they need to be with rack mounting, they need to be still connected because there's no wiring in between. So the male female adapters have to be touching. So if I'm understanding that correctly, if they're saying rack mounted, are you wanting that like on levels?
I think the
maybe
confusion
just-
is because we didn't show a video on how they stack. It might just simply be that a lot of systems look like ours, but you have to slide the batteries into it. And with ours, they stack up like Legos. So you're going to want to keep it in that form factor and architecture.
Can you hang the whole thing, the whole structure on the wall?
Yeah, I mean, we do have the wall mounted 5 kilowatt hour compact series. If you do need wall mounted, however, I have seen the stack series on stands on the wall. So where you put them and how you place them is totally in your court.
There's a question here from Michael Allen. Is the HomeGrid the only battery that the Sol-Ark can communicate with for BMS? Can other batteries be used, such as Discover? And yes, we can communicate with other batteries. BMS Discover is in our integration guide. So if you're curious about which batteries we can integrate with communications, you can check our latest communication guide on our website.
I'm gonna go ahead and also put that on the group chat just so everybody has it and they can just have.
Michael, we want to earn your business though. Come talk to us. I think you'll love our solution.
There is a question for HomeGrid. If I have to add more stacks of battery, will it need or trigger a city permit recertification or review?
Oh, that was just the one where, yeah, it will in most HJs, if not all of them. So that is what they're asking. I don't think most installers are doing that, but that is our official recommendation.
How often is software over the air updates are done for the BMS?
That's a great question. We actually, we just recently added Wi-Fi capability several months ago to our BMS. We have an app coming out this week, which is a big deal. So going forward, we will be able to do remote firmware updates. It's been a more manual approach till this point. So reach out to us so we can give you kind of a walkthrough on that. But on the app, you'll be able to update the batteries.
Sounds good. Does the HomeGrid have an enclosure system for the batteries that meets the code requirements for high voltage batteries?
No, we don't currently.
Question
All right,
from
so then-
Peter Rubino. Do the Sol-Ark, well, read the wrong one. Do Sol-Ark commercial battery systems require a transformer when connecting to three-phase commercial systems? We already answered that one. Dean Van Fleet, are your charge controllers swappable in the field so the whole inverter chassis does not need to be sent in for repairs? Depends on the part. We do have replaceable parts inside of our inverter, so it just depends on what needs to be replaced. So some parts can be done on field, and other repairs we would need to send the unit in.
I'd just like to add a little bit more to that. We do also have some authorized service centers in islands such as Puerto Rico or Jamaica. We do have some also in South America. So depending really on where you are, if you're in the continental United States, it may likely be needed to be sent in for repairs. But as Andrew mentioned, we do have several parts that can be repaired out on the field. If you do need help with that, you will need to talk to support@solark.com, or you can always give us a call.
I think that we Unless any one of you want to take another question from the list, or
The final one was just simply asking about using a smart panel. Sol-Ark has their own smart load management system coming out, or we recommend using Savant. And smart load management can be really smart. So we have a really deep integration with them, and I think it's the best system on the market. So I'd check that out.
if there are any other questions for the team here, you can email us at info@renvu.com. We will distribute question to the relevant person and send you the answer or add it to the follow-up email. As I mentioned before, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll send you a link in a follow-up email. Again, thanks for joining us today, and thanks Bernie, Nick, Spencer, and Andrew for giving us from your knowledge and answering all the questions. We will work on the recordings and email it to you in the next few days. Have a great rest of your week, everybody, and thank you for joining us.